I often get people coming to me with debt problems, and I give most of them the same advice. Check out the personal insolvency arrangements that might be open to you, because there is good deals, excellent deals to be done. I'm seeing there in the newspaper yesterday morning or this morning, a woman had 2.7 million of a 3 million euro debt written off for just over 1,300 euros. So this was a personal insolvency arrangement approved by the High Court. She had 2.7 million of nearly 3 million euros debt written off for a payment of 1,316 euros to her creditors, and she will retain her family home under the terms of the personal insolvency arrangement approved by the High Court. This is not the first case that I have noticed or seen or made a video about, quite frankly, of this nature. I've made plenty of them, and time again I see very, very good outcomes for people who are hard pressed with debt. As I say, I have people coming here all the time asking me or showing me statements, and they have debt that they'll never be able to pay off. And I give them the same advice. Go to a personal insolvency practitioner, a PIP, and see, is your position, is your situation suitable for a personal insolvency arrangement? Because if it is, and you have a good PIP, and you have the right legal team, the right barrister to get your case through the High Court, well then the PIP or the personal insolvency arrangement can be approved and basically enforced or forced upon your banks, your creditors, even if they don't agree. A similar arrangement was separately approved for the woman's husband, who had 2.66 million debt arising from mostly the same loans, written off for a payment of 1,316. The arrangements were approved by Mr. Justice Alexander Owens for a retired couple in Dunshaughlin. The lady in question is a full-time carer for her mother, the court heard. And the barrister, Keith Farry, for the personal insolvency practitioner, Nicholas O'Dwyer, for both applicants, made the application. The judge was satisfied the arrangements met the criteria for approval under the Personal Insolvency Acts, and it is the Personal Insolvency Acts which set up the Personal or the Insolvency Service of Ireland and introduced debt settlement arrangements and personal insolvency arrangements and so forth. It was stated that the lady's total debt is 2.984 million euros, of which 2.2 million was on foot of personal loans owed to Everyday Finance, which was one of the several unsecured creditors who had voted against the personal insolvency arrangement at a creditors meeting. The husband, his total debt was 2.976 million. The proposed personal insolvency arrangement was supported by Mars Capital Ireland. A secured creditor owed about 608,000 euros on foot of a mortgage secured on the couple's home in Dunshaughlin. That property has a current market value of 275,000, meaning a deficit or negative equity of some 343,000. Under the personal insolvency arrangement, Miss Johnson will pay 1,316 euros to creditors in exchange for having 2.66 million of debt written off. In her affidavit, Miss Johnson said a lump sum of 200,000 is required to be paid within 6 months of court approval of the PIA. That will be paid from the proceeds of the sale of her mother's home in County Dublin. According to her court documents then, her mother will move in to her daughter's home. The Dunshaughlin home mortgage balance under the personal insolvency arrangement will be reduced to 275,000 euros and the interest rate reduced from 4.15% to 3% fixed. Mortgage payments of 665 euros will be paid for the 6-month term of the personal insolvency arrangement and thereafter for the duration of an extended mortgage term of 11 years. The outstanding balance of 343,109 euros will then be written off. Her Mercedes Vito car was excluded from the personal insolvency arrangement because it's needed to care for her mother. And her husband's Nissan van was also excluded from the personal insolvency arrangement due to the location of their home. The lady's net income was put at €1,851 monthly. Her husband's was put at €1,243, and after deduction of all offset costs, reasonable living expenses and mortgage repayments, a monthly contribution of €21.60 from her and €10.99 from him was available for the personal insolvency arrangement. In the affidavit then, the PIP said that the PIA is part of an interlocking arrangement allowing for a greater distribution to creditors than they would be the case under bankruptcy proceedings. So the creditors basically were facing either this deal, which might look like a terrible deal from their perspective, or they were looking at bankruptcy. And under bankruptcy, they would be even worse off, according to the PIP. So the PIP thought that the arrangements had a reasonable prospect of being implemented and provided a better outcome for each of the debtors than bankruptcy. As required under the Act, more than half of a particular class of creditor supported the arrangement, he said, and the judge, Mr. Justice Alexander Owens, approved the personal insolvency arrangement. That is another example of what I have been bleating on for some time about on this channel for people who have debt problems, and I know that there is still plenty of people out there with debt problems who still have an overhang of debt arising from the whole Celtic Tiger collapse and so on and so forth, the property development that went on there in 2007, 8, 9, the investment property thing, people getting pension or trying to make a pension for themselves by buying buy-to-let properties and so on and so forth, the investment property bubble, the whole residential property and the commercial property crash that happened. There is still an overhang of debt there. I know there's people out there, I meet them regularly, but as I say, I give them the same advice: go to a PIP, explore your options with a PIP, and you may well get a good personal insolvency arrangement or debt settlement arrangement together. There is good options available. The alternative to that is to spend your time complaining and whinging and whining and giving out about banks, giving out about the government, giving out about builders, giving out about the EU, giving out about whatever you like, take your pick. That's what you can do, but you still owe the money. Or you can try and get one of these arrangements, one of these debt settlement insolvency arrangements, which have been brought into being by the by the legislation there a few years ago, the personal insolvency. That's it. Hope you find this video useful. If you do, I would appreciate if you gave it a thumbs up down below, and you might be interested in subscribing to my YouTube channel. If you are listening to this on my podcast, the Irish Law and Small Business Podcast, it would be great if you left a review on either Spotify or iTunes or wherever you might listen to your podcasts. Thank you very much.